Humans of the cardboard, welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today we're going over more Sinful Spoils lore or Diabell lore. Support cards, interesting to see. We have like a new main deck Aamina, we have a fusion Snake Eyes, we have another big Aamina fusion, a new Goblin Biker rank 6, and of course a new Aamina trap card as well. Seems to be like tonight's wave is a little bit less centralized around Whitewoods, like we saw last night. And a little more something else. Also weird, like I looked when normally they drop news. I don't know if they had like some weird issue getting it out, but I checked at the normal time. I just thought we didn't have news tonight for Supreme Darkness, which was weird to me because they've been on a roll with that, and I thought tonight was just going to be another one of those. Wasn't there, and then I, wake up in the middle of the night with acid indigestion, and then here we go. I see even more, so here we go. Anyway, bunch of cards, let's get into it. Queen of Aamina is our first card. Main deck monster, level 8 Dark Illusion. So that's searchable off of the, I don't even know her name, the apprentice magician girl. The one that just searches, I believe, any illusion. I don't even think she has a level restriction on what she can search. So the more illusions we get, the more she becomes a legit card. It's cool to see. Alright, this card's attack is 2,500, its defense is 2,000, classic Dark Magician stats. This card is always treated as a Sinful Spoils card. Well, that's what you do if you want to make a card super searchable, for sure. First effect, if this card is sent to the graveyard or banished from your hand or field by an activated card or effect, you can special summon this card. Okay, it's an Aamina card, so like I guess just using this as fusion material for an Aamina, that would trigger this card and it would come back. Although the Aamina fusions generally don't fuse normal. In normal ways, they like send Sinful Spoil cards, which I guess this card counts as, so I guess that still works, but still a little bit weird there. But that's fine. I don't know. This is a fine effect, right? It coming back. There's some branded monsters that do stuff like that, or Despia. And second effect, when your Aamina or White Forest monster destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can target a Sinful Spoils spell or trap engrave, add it back to your hand. This card's not good, straight up. Like, this is a pretty bricky card. It doesn't do anything on its own, like literally anything. It's entirely dependent on other cards, and it also can't be sent from deck, which I feel like would have given it extra ways to kind of like get it in rotation and access it, but it wouldn't trigger. To come back if you send it from deck. You have to search it first, then send it. And its bonus effect, this is a bonus effect, basically. Like, not even like a real full-on effect that you would want to rely on, right? It's battle-oriented, only works turn 2 or later. This card is just not that good to me. Like, I would be surprised if Aamina decks end up playing this, but let me know if you think I'm wrong on that. This card really does not wow me at all. Next up here we have a Snake Eye Fusion. This is a level 8 Fire Dragon, so like a Flamberge, I guess. He has really cool artwork, by the way. Look at that. He looks awesome. 3,000 attack, 2,500 defense. The Blue Eye stats here. Classic Dragon boss monster. It requires one Snake Eye monster plus an illusion, so a little bit generic on the back end, but needing a Snake Eye as the first card. But fusing is not generally what Snake Eyes do, so we'll have to see. Must either be fusion summoned or special summoned by sending 2 face-up monster cards from your spell and trap zone to the graveyard. You can only use its effects once per turn. Interesting. So that summoning condition is weird to me. Snake Eye obviously puts their own cards in the spell and trap zone. Super, super easy. The question will be how easy / like which ones would you even want to do for putting an illusion into your spell and trap zone. Because if it's easy enough, a deck like Snake Eye, it almost could make this card similar to the Visas Starfrost. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he required, like, he would require, it was the fusion that would require, like, Visas plus any of the monsters with the exact stat line that he required, like 1,500 attack, 2,100 defense. It would almost be like that. That like you facilitate this pretty cleanly, and then this card's like just really freely jumping on the board for you from extra with very minimal investment. Because these cards are already in the spell and trap zone, not even like on field, so or like in monster zone at least. Okay. As for the actual effect of like what this card does at all, if this card is special summon, you can target a face-up monster on the field, place it face-up in its owner's spell and trap zone as a continuous spell. So not only that, but like also get some extra utility on how you're able to utilize this card going second, right? If you're playing into a board, even your opponent's kind of stopping what you're doing mostly in your monster zone, but you're able to still fill up the spell and trap zone with a Snake Eye and an Illusion, plop this card, and help break the board. 3,000 body that's also taking an opponent's monster, basically, and removing it is quite good. This is a good card. It's especially with how Snake Eye could potentially facilitate it. Very cool. Next up, Saint Aamina, new fusion monster for Aamina. It's a level 10 Dark Illusion, 0 attack, 4,000 defense, really big booty, no attack. Really interesting. So also just keep this in mind. It's a level 10 Aamina, which most of the Aamina fusion spells, I believe, they work in a weird manner where they send the number of Sinful Spoils cards you have on field or in hand to grave for every 4 levels of the fusion you're trying to summon. So I think if you try to summon a 4 or lower, you just have to send 1, a 5, 2, and 8. You have to send 2, but I think since this is a 10, I think you'd have to send 3 Sinful Spoils cards to summon this off of most of the Aamina fusions. Some of them might work a little bit more like regular fusions, but just interesting to note in that manner. Alright, next up, as far as its materials, it requires 1 level 6 or higher fusion and 1 level 6 or higher synchro. Whoa. That makes this card like quite a interesting super poly target. Any board that's ending on like a decent, like most fusions are level 6 or higher, especially end board fusions, and most synchros, especially end board synchros, are level 6 or higher. So any deck now that ends on like a fusion plus a synchro is super polyable into this guy. Interesting. You can only see second effect once per turn. When your opponent cannot target this card, cards they control, and cards in their graveyard in banishment with card effects. Also, they take any battle damage you would have taken instead. Second effect of this card was fusion summon this turn. You can special summon a level 9 or lower Aamina monster from your deck or extra deck. So can't summon another copy of itself, but I think all the rest of them are 8 or lower. Whoa, this card's crazy. Now, I don't even think it's that good in Aamina, right? Like, even if you can summon this with like a regular fusion style effect in Aamina, you have to give up a fusion you've already summoned and a level 6 or higher synchro. I feel like there just might be better value you can get off of a certain card, but you are still immediately able to summon another Aamina out, which, you know, is definitely good value immediately. And then this first effect, do not sleep on this. This reads like a bonus protection effect, but this effect is strong. So this card not being targetable, that makes it even harder to deal with when you summon it and try to summon an Aamina from extra deck, because it can't be impermed or veiled or anything like that. But this part right here is even crazier. I never realized how strong an effect like this could be until I played against a friend who was on Infernoble Knight, when they were playing that equip card that like says your opponent can't target any monsters except for the one that's currently equipped with that card. And so it basically made me realize how many archetypes have like an add back from grave that targets, a special summon, and a monster reborn effect from grave that targets, or just like an effect that says like target a monster on target one of your in archetype monsters on field to like summon one from hand or summon one from deck, whatever. You don't realize how many cards target your own stuff until you can't. And then you realize, like, oh my god, half of my deck is turned off, and a lot of decks have that same thing going on. They turn off, like, half of their entire deck. It's crazy. It's really, really crazy. So that's actually, like, a pretty crazy floodgate, on top of the fact that this can just summon out like, the Aamina that's an Omni Negate, or the one that searches a Sinful Spoils card. I think there's one that, like, pops cards, too, but I think the other two would be bigger. But like I said, this is an Aamina card, but it almost doesn't even seem like it's that easy to make an Aamina, or maybe even that worth, because you have to give up quite hefty materials for it. I think this card seems crazy as a super poly target. Imagine being able to super poly away these two monsters on your opponent's board into this with this crazy targeting protection floodgate, and the ability to immediately, if you're on a Sinful Spoils deck, summon the Searcher going second after you've already broken apart the board a little bit. Or just summon the Omni Negate. So whatever you do for the rest of the turn playing into the board, you have an insulation, the ability to negate your opponent trying to mess with you. This card seems crazy for Super Poly. That's insane. Alright, next up, Kickass Goblin Bikers. New rank 6 for Goblin Bikers. I hate that they did this, honestly. I think it's so bad and cringe that they started pushing Goblin Bikers into level 6 territory. They should have just stayed in their lane. The deck is so clunky like that. I mess around with it, and it makes me shiver sometimes. Like, thinking about how good badass Goblin Bikers could have been if he was a level 3. But they made him level 6, and it makes it so awkward. But still, this card, they still can utilize this card, but they're dependent on resolving effects that, like, modulate levels, where if your opponent can just, like, negate your ability to modulate levels, it really kills your ability to, like, facilitate these types of plays, but whatever. Alright, 2+ level 6 monsters. It is generic, 25, 2000 for the stats. Got that Dark Magician stat line again. You can only use the first and second effects once per turn each. You can target face-up monsters your opponent controls up to the number of goblin monsters you control. Detach from material from your monster. And if you do, attach those cards to this card as material. It's pretty good. That's like Cyber Dragon Infinity, but like with an even higher ceiling, where if you just have any other goblin monsters, you could potentially be taking 2 to 3 monsters from your opponent's field to gain materials. So it's like an Infinity effect, but with a higher ceiling potentially, to break a board or to just mass clear the opponent's board, which is cool. Second effect, during your opponent's turn, quick effect, you can target cards your opponent controls up to the number of goblin exceeds. This is exceeds, whereas the first effect was just goblins, which makes it a little bit worse. Not that you're leaving like a bunch of main deck goblins on field regardless, but still, it doesn't help. And normally you're not making anything else aside from Gabanga on the opponent's turn, but that's fine. Gabanga's really good. Anyway, detach 3 materials from your monsters, and if you do, send those targets to the graveyard. Interesting. Okay, so if you're ending on this by itself, so this doesn't have nearly as much application in anything but Goblin Biker, basically, because if you only have one, if this is the only Goblin Exceed you have, you're just sending one target to the graveyard. That's not even that good of an interruption. Like, it's fine, it's decent. But it's like, why would you ever make this rather than Wave King High Caesar potentially, or the Evolzar negation guy, like to insulate your board from like board breakers? I just don't fully even, I don't know why you would pick this card over those. Now, in Goblin Biker, if you're also ending on Gabanga, sending 2 is a little stronger, for sure, because you can let them get 2 link materials on field and then not even let them get into anything from there, force them to use some of their engine effects and run through some of that. That's a little better if you have Gabanga specifically. There is a weird thing with going first with this card, where you obviously don't want to make this card with more than 2 materials. And if you're going first, you're not sucking up any of your opponent's monsters, so you're not gaining the materials that way, kind of like Infinity does. And so it does put me in a weird position where it's like, I feel like I've done combos with Goblin Biker where I end up with Gabanga with no materials on him. So if that's all you end on, you won't even have enough materials to use this effect. You would only have 2 materials on this card, none on Gabanga. Now, I would expect that in that deck you're able to go combo enough where you're able to end on another Exceed, have a material somewhere else that's you're not in need of, so this would be live. But that's just something interesting to note, that it's like a monster you don't want to make with 3 materials itself, so you do have to be pairing it with another Exceed to make that worth it, and you need to make sure you have another Goblin Exceed, otherwise its actual interruption effect isn't strong enough feeling, I would say. So, weird card. It is still decent for Goblin Biker, though. Like, this might have a home in the deck, because it's a good enough, like, it has utility going second to break the board, has utility going first for an extra solid interruption. It may be good enough as a rank 6 option that, like, the deck can make by modulating some levels. But, again, I hate that they even went in that direction in the first place. This card would be really awesome if it could, like, be overlaid just for free on top of a Goblin Exceed, but that'd be too good. So they had to nerf this, I guess. Alright. Final card, Aamina Unleashing. It's a new normal trap. This card is also treated as a White Forest. Okay, so even more White Forest stuff after last night. Cool artwork, by the way. You have like the evil form of some Diabelle versus her goody-goody form, I guess. I don't even know who this is. Who is this? I don't know. I'm not a big lore guy. It's never been my cup of tea. You can only use the first and second effects once per turn. Each target cards on the field up to the number of fusion and synchro monsters, Fiend, Illusion, and Spellcaster. you control and in your graveyard. Return them to the hand. And the second effect of this card is sent to the graveyard to activate a monster effect. You can set this card, of course. It's White Force. This is interesting. This could potentially be good enough to play. I mean, the deck already likes to play Woes. Now, I know Woes like kind of like is sort of an engine card in that it's like getting something back from grave and then synchroing you into something else. So it's like kind of, it's getting you into something that has a little more staying power. But this is undeniably like potentially a really strong interruption. If you've gone through your turn 1 play, and especially with the new cards potentially allowing Aamina and Whitewoods to combine together pretty well, we could be looking at a world where through turn 1 you're maybe sending like, you might have one of the Aamina fusions in grave, plus 1 or 2 illusion synchros in grave, plus a spellcaster fusion in grave. Like, you're able to synchro climb and just put these in grave. These are not archetype dependent. These are just generic fusion and synchro monsters that are fiend, illusion, or spellcaster. This card's extra searchable because it's White Force. It's also Aamina, so that also, I think, makes it a little more searchable. Really interesting. Now, returns them to hand to the cards you're targeting, so it's not as crazy as like a banish or something, or like a shuffle. But you know what I mean? If you're able to target 3 or 4 cards, because that's just how many of these cards you're putting in rotation turn 1, that could potentially make this a card that vies for a main deck slot over Woes. You know what I mean? If you just feel like this is a stronger interaction. Because even if your board does get broken apart by board breakers, like completely, you lose all monsters, you'd still be able to like bounce everything, because everything would probably just be in grave, and you'd still have 2 to 4 cards you could bounce all at once. So pretty interesting that this could actually be a card that you might consider over Woes. Woes is still really good. I'm not sure. I think there's some debate to be had, but this is not a nothing card to me. This is like a card that could find a slot, a one-of slot in the deck for sure. All right, there we go. Cool stuff. I kind of hope this is it for Sinful Spoils stuff in this set. Like, I'm a little on overload here. I mean, this is like 10 Sinful Spoils cards here, and it's all support for older archetypes, not even a new lower archetype yet revealed for this set. So very curious to see where they go from here. Good stuff. I would say the Aamina is a whiff, the main deck one. I think the Snake Eyes card could be good. I think this card could be crazy for Super Poly. I think this card's interesting, but I don't think it's like really that, like, I don't think it really takes Goblin Bikers to another level or anything. And this card could potentially be played over Woes in White Force. So definitely some interesting cards. I would say the fusions are the best ones here, but we'll have to wait and see. Let me know your thoughts down below if you're a fan of any of these archetypes or know any extra synergies I didn't mention here with some of these cards. Let me know in the comment section down below what the deal is there. But I'm out of here for tonight. Thank you so much for watching as always, guys. Stay tuned for all things Yu-Gi-Oh! News going forward, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.